Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. I have been searching for a car for weeks and I was starting to get desperate. I needed something reliable and within my budget, but every listing I found seemed to fall short. That's when I stumbled upon a promising listing on Craigslist. The car was exactly what I was looking for, and the price was within my budget. I exchanged a few messages with the seller and we arranged to meet at a parking lot on the outskirts of the city. As I hailed a taxi to take me to the meeting spot, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. I had heard all sorts of horror stories about Craigslist transactions gone wrong, but I had done my research on the seller and had no reason to suspect anything shady. As I arrived at the parking lot, I scanned the area for the seller's car. I noticed a black sedan parked at the end of the lot and assumed that was the one. As I approached the car, I saw a figure in a black tracksuit and hooded jacket standing nearby. It looked suspicious, but I assumed it was the seller and approached them anyway. The figure asked if I had the money and I hesitated for a moment, but I had come this far and I really wanted the car, so I pulled out the cash and handed it over. As the figure counted the money, I took a closer look at the car. It seemed to be in good condition, and I was excited to take it for a test drive. But as I turned to ask the seller for the keys, I saw them pull out a gun from their pocket and point it at me. My heart raced as I froze in fear. The figure demanded that I hand over my wallet with the rest of my money, and I quickly complied. I felt violated and helpless as the figure searched my pockets, taking my belongings without a second thought. As the figure rummaged through my belongings, I tried to come up with a plan to escape. But with the gun pointed at me, I knew I had to stay still and comply with their demands. I knew I had no choice but to comply. As they jumped into the driver's seat of the car I was supposed to buy, they sped away and I was left alone in the parking lot, feeling shaken and violated. After collecting myself, I went to the nearest police station to report the crime. The officers took down my information and assured me that they would do everything they could to track down the culprit. But I knew that my chances of recovering my stolen possessions were slim. I had always considered myself a savvy shopper, but I had let my guard down in my search for a good deal. I vowed never to make the same mistake again, and to always prioritize my safety and security above all else. In the weeks that followed, I struggled with the aftermath of the incident. I found myself feeling anxious and paranoid, unable to trust anyone. I struggled to sleep at night, replaying the incident over and over in my head. Looking back on that fateful day, I couldn't help but feel grateful to be alive. The experience taught me that life can change in an instant, and that it's important to always stay vigilant and aware of our surroundings. I may never forget what happened to me, but I refuse to let it define me. I am determined to move forward with strength and resilience, and to never let my guard down again. I had been searching for a part-time job to supplement my income for a while when I stumbled upon an intriguing ad on Craigslist. It was a delivery job offering $100 for each drop-off, and it seemed like an easy way to make some quick cash. I quickly contacted the poster and was told that I could start immediately. Excited about the prospect of earning some extra money, I eagerly accepted the job and was given an address to pick up the package from. As I made my way to the address, I began to feel a sense of anxiety. The area seemed run down and desolate, and I had somewhat of a strong feeling that something wasn't quite right. I arrived at the designated location for the delivery job I had accepted on Craigslist. It was a sketchy part of town, and my discomfort grew as I made my way towards the building. But I reminded myself that I needed the money and pressed on. As I walked into the building, the smell hit me like a wall. It was like a strong, pungent smell. Two men, both wearing hoodies and masks, greeted me and led me to a dimly lit room. My nerves were on edge as I waited for them to prepare the package. After a few minutes, they returned with a black package, which they handed to me. As I looked at it, I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. It looked like drugs. I knew I had to get out of there. Without thinking, I dropped the package back at them and turned to run. But one of the men pulled out a gun and aimed it at me. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to think a way out. In a split-second decision, I lunged towards the door and ran out of the building as fast as I could. I heard the sound of running footsteps behind me and knew that they were chasing me. I jumped into my car and sped off. feeling a mix of relief and fear. I knew I had narrowly escaped a dangerous situation. As I drove away, I couldn't help but wonder what could have happened if I had accepted the package and tried to deliver it. It was a close call, and I knew that I would never again trust a job posting on Craigslist without thoroughly checking out first. When I got home, I immediately called the police to report the incident. They took down my information and assured me that they would investigate the matter. But even with their assurances, I still felt very uncomfortable and was in a constant state of fear of what had settled over me. Over the next few days, I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, afraid that someone was watching me. I couldn't concentrate at work and found myself checking and rechecking the locks on my doors and windows at night. As the days turned into weeks, I slowly started to regain a sense of normalcy. But the incident had left its mark on me, and I found myself more cautious and skeptical than ever before. I had learned the hard way that not everything on the internet was as it seemed, and that it was important to trust my instincts and prioritize my safety above all else. I was fresh out of college and searching for a place to live. I stumbled upon an ad on Craigslist for a room available in a nice apartment with a great location. I quickly responded to the ad and got a response back from a guy named John. As I walked through the door of the Craigslist rental, I was immediately struck by how nice it was. The room was spacious, with a large window that let in plenty of natural light. The bed was comfortable, and the desk and chair looked perfect for study. I couldn't believe my luck in finding such a great place to live. The man who had placed the ad was friendly and seemed perfectly normal. He introduced himself as John and showed me around the apartment, pointing out the kitchen, bathroom, and common areas. Everything seemed clean and well maintained. Over the next few days, John and I got to know each other better. We chatted about our interests and our lives. He seemed like a great guy, and I was happy to have found such a good roommate. But then things started to get weird. I began to notice that John was always home when I was home. He never seemed to leave the apartment, and I never saw him bring anyone over. I started to wonder if he had a job or any other friends. One night, I woke up to the sound of strange noises coming from John's room. It sounded like he was talking to someone, but I couldn't make out what he was saying. I tried to ignore it and go back to sleep, but I had this odd feeling that something definitely wasn't right. The next day, I asked John if everything was okay. He seemed surprised by my question and reassured me that everything was fine. But again, it was hard to brush off the impression that something was off about him. As the days went by, I started to notice more and more strange things about John. He never seemed to eat, and I never saw him go to the grocery store. His room was always locked, and he never let me inside. One day, I came home from class early and decided to take a nap. I was just drifting off to sleep when I heard a noise that made me jump. It sounded like someone was moving around in John's room. I decided to investigate. I quietly got out of bed and tipped it over to John's door. I pressed my ear against the wood and listened carefully. What I heard next chilled me to the bone. It was the sound of John's voice, but he wasn't talking to anyone. He was talking to himself, and he was saying things that made my blood run cold. I couldn't make out all the words, but I heard phrases like, "I can't stop," "They never suspect me," and "I need to find my next victim." I knew then that I had to get out of that apartment as soon as possible. I packed up my things and left that night, never looking back. It wasn't until later, when I saw John's face on the news, that I realized just how lucky I had been to escape from him. He had been a serial killer, preying on young women who had answered his Craigslist ad for a roommate. The thought of what could have happened to me still haunts me to this day. But I'm grateful to be alive, and I know now to be more careful when responding to ads on Craigslist. You never know who you might be dealing with. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.